Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us for our Friday weather update for February the 24th. And as we head into the weekend, it's still raining around parts of Hawke's Bay, but the good news is it is going to ease back. Let's have a look at the animated wind map. There is high pressure over the South Island at the moment, keeping conditions pretty settled and dry around a large portion of the lower half of the island especially. But the further north you go, the more likely you are to be caught up in that east to southeast breeze, and it's driving in a bit of wet weather for the eastern side and spreading across parts of the North Island with a few isolated heavy falls as we go into Friday afternoon. That southeast flow goes all the way off to Australia, and we're seeing showers around parts of New South Wales and Queensland on the coastal side. Meanwhile, the heat wave, the 40 to 45 degree temperatures in South Australia, disappearing with a southerly coming through there. And up in the tropics, low pressure is forming. And we're going to talk about that at the end of this broadcast. We've got a tropical update for you. But let's take a look at this rainfall coming into Hawke's Bay. We still are seeing around about 50 to 70 millimetres coming through over the next 2 days. Please keep up to date with the Met Service warnings, which are still in force. But that rain very much focused in Hawke's Bay. We're seeing about 40 millimetres for the main centres like Hastings, Napier, Wairoa and Gisborne, which is not too problematic, but it can lead to slips. And unfortunately, with so much rain that's fallen, that'll be the biggest risk at the moment. And for those, the contractors clearing the roads, it may slow them down a wee bit just for the next 24 hours. And again, some heavier downpours maybe around parts of Waikato, Western Bay of Plenty, Coromandel as well. But the further north and the further south you go, the drier it is. Let's have a look at this evening, 6 o'clock, and you can see that weak area of low pressure and the strong area of high pressure. In between the two, there's that east to southeast wind, and the rain's kind of just stuck there. It's not so much that it's really heavy or it's a storm, it's just an area of rain sort of wedged into that zone, and it'll be stuck there overnight. But then as we go to lunchtime tomorrow, Saturday, you can see dry spells developing, that low pressure zone kind of drifting down, pushing the rain further down to coastal Wairarapa and further into maybe some northeastern corner, or the northeastern corner I should say, of the South Island. Still a few remaining showers elsewhere in the North Island, maybe a couple of heavy falls in the afternoon with the daytime heating. So as we go into Sunday, it's still a bit messy, but the Hawke's Bay and Gisborne areas are looking drier. There'll still be a couple of showers floating around, but much, much drier conditions as we go through the Sunday period. Conditions, as I say, won't be completely perfect. There's still the risk of a downpour, especially if you get a thundery one. That can be a bit of a problem. But I am trying to say, yes, it's not looking as bad as we go through Saturday and Sunday for those of you in Hawke's Bay and Gisborne. Let's get into next week. So we've got a low off to the northeast. There are at least 3 low pressure zones in the tropics. And then we've got a bit of high pressure in this zone here. So the North Island is going to see some fairly dry weather coming in. It's still the risk of a couple of showers. They might bubble up in the afternoon. There's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere and in the ground. So once you end up with a bit of daytime heating, perfect recipe for a few afternoon clouds building up. But nothing really changes next week in any major way. High pressure still in control. It's not the most powerful high. So you can see a few showers still on the eastern side there. But we're not talking about days of rain. We're talking about the risk of a few showers or maybe a couple of hours of wet weather. High pressure, though, still in the middle of it all. And by Wednesday next week, high pressure still, mostly over the North Island and South Island, giving away a little bit to a nor'wester down in the south here. This looks a bit autumn-like, all the windy westerlies, but we've got a few showers, rain in the west coast, but a few showers in the North Island here, maybe 1 or 2, a little bit heavy and thundery, but mostly inland. And then we've got in Australia this windy sou'wester or southerly coming in, your temperature's down. And then finally in the tropics, low, low, low. So one of these low pressure zones more than likely will turn into a cyclone. I saw the news stories in New Zealand's news yesterday, the mainstream news outlets jumping at the chance to talk about another cyclone because other forecasters for some reason are talking about it. I'm not too sure why, because the computer modelling for New Zealand is certainly not very confident. I think I've seen one model out of about 50 updates that showed New Zealand directly hit. Very different to Cyclone Gabrielle, which had 3 days of all computer modelling saying it's coming straight to us. So just take a bit of a deep breath. Tension in New Zealand is quite high. Anxiety is high. A lot of people feel a bit traumatized by what's happened. I don't think it's wise to be really talking too much about a low risk of a maybe storm that might not reach us till the 10th of March. So for now, we're tracking tropical lows. If one does form, we will immediately start talking about where it's going to go, especially if it affects those in the tropics. But for New Zealand now, at the moment, the risk is low. So don't get too worried about some of those headlines you might be seeing. When we start to worry, we will certainly let you know. But for now, there is no risk for New Zealand at this stage of a cyclone coming in, but there is certainly some risk of this low pressure up here turning into a storm. So it's worth keeping an eye on. But we've got this big high yet to come in from the Indian Ocean that will be spreading out towards New Zealand, and that will be probably a guiding feature as well. So a lot of moving parts to go. But for now, we've got high pressure in the New Zealand area, at least for the first half of next week. That is all from me. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday.